Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Hope Mestom, and thank you so much for clicking on this declutter. This is part of my larger mid-year declutter series, and I'm going to be releasing it segments by segment over the course of however long it takes me to get through it. And then after I post all the segments, there will be one mega cut, super long video, because I know a lot of people like to unwind and watch these and relax. And just so you know, if you are going to watch any of these, there's no spikes in volumes. And if I do play music, it's going to be very chill and really low volume so that it's not jarring as you watch it, because I don't want you to be jarred if you were starting to fall asleep and were watching my video. If you want to just jump into the declutter, feel free to click through down below. There's going to be timestamps. I do want to give you some context about what my goals were in this declutter. I am a content creator that sometimes gets PR, and I sometimes buy things for review. And what that means is that I have more makeup coming through my house at any given time. And this is a part-time gig for me. Like, the PR has just been more and more recently. And I do like to test things. I like to try new things. And I like to pass that information on to people who watch my channel. But what it means is for the stuff that I'm not actively reviewing is that I don't get to it as much. And what my goal is in this declutter is to really be serious about what I'm actually using and what I will use in my free time off of camera or when I'm not testing things. So this is a pretty thorough and large declutter. Like, I'm getting rid of a lot of makeup through it. It doesn't happen in every one of the segments, but in most of the segments, there's a lot of makeup being decluttered in the series. I don't want you to ever feel that your makeup collection is too small or your makeup collection is too large. We're all allowed to navigate the beauty space as we see fit. But my personal belief, my personal opinion is that I think that we should be consuming makeup products, buying makeup products with the intent that they are going to be really, really good products that we are going to want to use all the way up, that we're going to love as long as we can, whether or not we get to it enough to use it before it either goes off or we get bored of it. I think that we shouldn't be buying makeup with the idea or the feeling that we are gonna do a declutter later. It's a little bit different for me as a content creator, but like, if I wasn't a content creator, that would be how I would want to buy makeup. Like, that would be my vision for it. And that's not to say I'm not going to ever buy and keep makeup in the future. It's not to say that whenever PR comes through that I might not keep some of it because it's really high quality, but I'm just doing this all with the understanding that my personal makeup collection, the stuff that I consider to be mine, the permanent collection, is something that I need to keep a little bit smaller than I have in the past. This isn't to tell you that you need to declutter your makeup collection. Just know that going through that is the approach I'm coming at this with. It's really important for you as someone who might not be a content creator who gets PR or has additional money coming in for the sole purpose of reviewing makeup to view this as something that's a part of this job and not something that you should have to do as a consumer. That's all I wanted to say before we jumped into it. So I hope you enjoy my declutter. Here are all of my cheek products. This is contours, bronzers, highlighters, blushes. This is probably one of the categories that I want to be maybe the harshest in. We'll see how I do on that. These are my two contours. I'm not going to get rid of either one. This is from Ritual Defee. This is the Innerglow Cream Pigment in Intuition. And this is a true contour for me. I have a light skin, fair skin with a little bit of a cooler undertone. So that really works for me. I do prefer a very cool undertoned contour, but if I am feeling a little bit of a bronzer contour situation, I'll use this. This is from Victoria Beckham. It's their contour stylist in Travertine. And obviously you can see there's a big difference. While it is a cool toned brown, it is certainly not like this. I wear this most of the time. You can see the pan in it. And I use the one from Victoria Beckham much more occasionally. I'm not someone who typically leans into the bronze of it all. So that's not normally my gig. So this gets less play, but I like having it as an option. And if it ever gets to the point where I feel I'm overwhelmed with my two contours, this would be the one to go. But I think two contour products, two cream contours is totally fine for me. I do shuffle between the two of them. Here we are again. These are all of my bronzing products, and I always want to make this smaller, but I will say that I have been flipping through the 5 of them pretty regularly, but I do think I can make at least the difficult decision of putting 1 or 2 of them in the quarantine bin. I'm not getting rid of them quite yet, but we'll see if I miss them at all. So let's start with the one I've been using the most right now. It's this one from Chanel. It's their cream bronzer, the Soleil Tan Deep shade. And I like this one over the original shade because it's a little bit more ruddy. And I prefer a red to a orange whenever it comes to bronzer. Like if it has to be that strong of an undertone, I prefer it. I've had this for over 2 years and I'm just trying to use it as much as I can this summer. It's a cream product and I know it will go off eventually, but I have been having a good time this summer really using it quite a bit. So I'm going to hold on to that one, keep it out of the quarantine box. This is the one from Gucci in the shade 1 and I really liked this for like 6 months. If you were here, you know that I really liked it for 6 months and I still really, really like it. I like the undertone of it. That's what that one looks like. And I really, really liked it in the winter time. I do think as things have been warming up, I've been preferring bronzers that are a little bit more warm, but I know I will swing back to this in the fall. So I'm going to just keep that out. I've used it a couple times, you know, in the past couple of months, but I have been paying attention to a couple other bronzers. And then the other bronzer that I've been kind of paying more attention to recently is this one from Surratt. It's the shade Soleil Dew. And this one's a more neutral bronzer. If anything, maybe leans a little bit yellow, but I feel like it is the most neutral of the shades I've swatched so far. I love their formulas. The thing about this bronzer that's a bummer is that they've only released 2 shades, which is that's bad, really bad. But this shade works for me and I really, really, really like it. You can see that I've started making a dent in it, which is really, really promising. And this was one that was like rolling around in my drawer, kind of being like ignored for a long time, and I recently fell in love with it again. I'm not here trying to like pressure myself to get rid of anything. I'm just trying to be realistic about what I can use as more stuff comes through my life, and I want to like at least be using things regularly. This one is from Phytosurgeons. This is from their first original launch of the bronzer in the shade Rosy Daybreak. It's really hard to swatch, and they did reformulate these so that they're a little bit different now. I think actually I'm okay decluttering this. And it's not because I don't think it's a fabulous formula and I don't love it. I think the color is really, really good. I do think that me putting my finger in it to swatch for camera kind of like messed it up. The brand themselves say like it's not really kind of meant for swatching. Okay. Jason of Phytosurgeons, he did offer to send me a replacement with the new formula. So I think I might just reach out for him to have that happen. So I'm going to declutter this. I'm not going to pass it on to anyone because I just broke it. So we're going to let that one go. Finally, from Victoria Beckham, this is the matte bronzing brick in the lightest shade. Actually, I think I might be ready to get rid of this. It's hard panned, which is not the reason I feel like I want to get rid of it. It is kind of like a very, very, very subtle bronzer, which I think works for a lot of people. Like they want something really subtle, but like I would even say that these 2 ones right here are pretty subtle on me. And if I control how much of this I apply, I can get something very faint. And I'm actually not a super big fan of duos. If I were to keep this, I would only use this side and then this side will be done. And then this side will probably have been broken because, you know, it's an uneven usage of the pan. I love this compact though. And so what I did do, I took a look, I pulled this out, but the shape underneath it is kind of weird. But I might just dispose of the pan and then use this as a travel eyeshadow case. I haven't really decided, but I actually think I am okay decluttering at least the pan inside, at least the product inside, because it is the bronzer that I do reach for the least, unfortunately, because it was very expensive. I think I would go back to it, but at that point I could just buy the refill as opposed to rebuying the whole thing, and that would be fine by me. There might be also some performance issues with it. I didn't use it as frequently as my other things, and Victoria Beckham claims to be a clean beauty brand, so maybe it is just not at the peak performance, but I just feel like it's kind of done nothing for me in the recent history. So that is the first like official hard decision to clutter. I'm going to be keeping 3 bronzers and I'm going to declutter these 2. And if I get that one back, I'm comfortable having 4. But if I don't, I will just wait a little bit till I repurchase this. But that's it. I'm just going to start pulling from my blushes since we're up close. I think I also want to do some damage here, and we'll do counts later. So this has 3 blushes in it. This is from Surratt. I am certainly not decluttering this. On the top here, we have Gui Mauve. In the middle is the shade Barba Papa, and then on the bottom is the shade Peau de Pêche. So here they are swatched. And Barba Papa is like my favorite blush shade that I own, still to this day. And the only reason I don't wear it more is because it's in this compact, and for some reason face palettes, my brain can't comprehend them. My brain does not like that, but I think that Surratt has one of the best powder blush formulas. It's so easy to work with. I really, really love it. I like how it melts into the skin. It looks gorgeous. Big fan of these. Gonna keep them. And I hope when I narrow things down in the blush department, I will come back to that a little more regularly. This is a little bit easier. This is Heliotrope from Rose Inc. A friend sent this to me, and it is a nice shade of blush. It is kind of in that like I don't know why I did this with this hand. I need to wipe off the bronzers. It has like a little bit of that beigey pink that I'm very into, but I don't reach for this one over two other beigey blushes that I like more, and it's just gonna languish here if I keep holding on to it. So I'm gonna give this to a friend. But I think this formula is really lovely. I also know that some like switch ups happened at Rose Inc. recently, and like I don't really know what's going on with that. But if I can pass this on to someone who would be sad to not have it, I think that would be a better use of its time. Next up, I have all of my blushes from Finding Ferdinand. Both of these collections were collaborations with Khaki of Khaki Reviews Beauty. There was two formulas. The original formula from the Summer Abroad collection is this formula, and this formula is really like melty to the touch, and I really like that. This is the shade Olay. Why did I swatch it diagonally? I'm so stupid. And this is the shade Latte. And I just love that creamy, melty, dry oil thing that they have going on. So I am going to keep these. And these are the kind of blushes that I will pull out if it's like, I really don't know what blush I want to use. These are the kind of thing that really save the day. Because they're like neutral enough. They're not really swinging one way or another. But I am going to pass on these two. This is from the Après Ski collection. And you can see here, like the formula is just like not as melty and delicious as the original formula. I don't really care for it. It's not that they don't look good on the cheek. It's not that I'm saying that. I don't know. I prefer that meltier formula. I just find it much easier to use. And while I do really love this purple transformer, and I have used it a lot in the past couple of months, I really haven't used it, and I just don't see myself using it. So I would love to rehome these to someone who will really enjoy them. Here's Mimi from Westman Atelier. After New Year's, whenever I did my like New Year's declutter series, I was not sure if this was something that was going to make the cut. However, I have been using it quite a bit since then, and I really, really enjoy it. I think I was just kind of like fooling myself. It was just something that I hadn't used in a while, but Mimi is a really pretty, special, one of those beigey shades that I really like. And while, yeah, it's whatever, I have a lot of that thing, but it's the thing that I use. And so I think it's okay to have varieties of formulas in that thing, especially if I'm going to reach for them. Because if I try a new formula in a shade I don't like, that's going to be like twofold a reason I'm not going to use that thing. So there's no point in me keeping that around. So something like that I find more valuable in my collection. Similarly, Inner Glow from Kjaer Weis is another one I really love. I'm going to keep it. This is something that I like have intentions of trying to use all the way up by the end of the year. I'm certainly making progress on it. Like I'm now kind of the point where like even the corners, my brush is getting to the corners to pick stuff up, and the pan is growing in the middle. Why am I so high in the frame? I did all this stuff to make it so I didn't have to reach, and yet I feel like I still am trying to reach. I really love it. I love the packaging, so I'm going to keep it. I'm kind of bouncing around my collection to be like, I know I want to keep this thing, I know I want to get rid of this thing. Speaking of things I'd like to get rid of, this is from Dior. This is the Backstage Rosy Glow Blush in Coral. And this is in the, I believe, the original formula. A friend passed this on to me. I just don't like wearing coral. And that's okay. That's okay. I never reach for this. I always compare it to other corals that make their way through my life. But I am just like not about a coral cheek. I think it's really beautiful. And I do think I look good in it. I just don't wear colors on the rest of my face that complement something like this. And I just gonna fare better in someone else's collection. I just know that if I get any coral blushes, they're not gonna make it out of the testing phase into my drawer. And so why am I holding on to one? Because in my free time, I don't use this. It's just not something that's ever at the top of my mind. So I'm ready to like part ways with it and call it what it is. And then we're kind of doing like a battle of warmth here. These kind of live in the same place in my mind. I just don't do a lot of warm toned looks. I mostly do like neutral, or I do cool leaning at this point. But there was a time on my channel, and some of you were here for it, where I really loved an orange blush. And the first one that really like sung to me is this one. It's Kiss of Copper from Bare Minerals and their bronzer formula. And it is really pretty. However, I also have this from Chantecaille, which is the shade Ray, which was released a couple summers ago. And it's not even really close to the same thing. It's more of like this bronzy, coppery orange. I wear it as a blush, but it's kind of supposed to be like an all over face product. But if I am reaching for something like this, I have been favoring the Chantecaille one over the bronzer. I just feel like I'm not super into these bright cheeks anymore like I once was. I just like something far more subtle. And if I am gonna try to go something more orangey, I'm gonna go for Peau de Pêche from Surratt in this compact over this as well. So I think it's time for me to just pass this on to someone who will love it more than me, and then I will keep the Chantecaille. These are two shades from Lukey Lukey. I gotta admit that I have not really given these like the fairest of tests of time in my collection. I've been reaching for other things over them, and I did invite them in after my reckoning. So like I know that they're there. I think 1111, which is this shade on the left here, is pretty special. It's like kind of that same bronzy thing, but a little less intense than what I have going on with the Chantecaille shade, and I really like it. It kind of reads more as a highlighter than a blush. It's like kind of maybe more of a blush lighter thing. I don't have anything else like that, so I'm totally down with keeping this shade. And you might be surprised to learn this is the shade Cosmo Flush. I've actually been wearing this quite a bit, and I've had colors like this bright pink before in my collection, and I know I just said like I'm not super into the brights, but I've been in my pink bag a little bit lately, and I think all of the other pinks that I've had in the past have been a little more warm, and this one is like a bright blue cool pink, and I think I like that on my skin tone better than the warmer pinks. So I actually am going to keep this too, and every now and then I like to do a really clean face with a bright cheek, and I think I would reach for this over something like Kiss of Copper at this point. Just continuing to justify why I got rid of Kiss of Copper. Next up, I have the Charlotte Tilbury Blush Wand in the shade Pillow Talk, and I really adore this thing despite myself. That's kind of blush shade I really like right now. I am into mauves, but they have to be like cool like this. I love a cheek that's like verging on bruisey, and that's what this provides. It has a lot of gray in it. I really like that. And then to swatch it right next to it from Phytosurgence, the shade Condensate similarly has like the qualities of a bruisey cheek, but is much more purpley gray. And it's interesting because I feel like in the swatches, it looks like one thing, and then on my cheek, it looks more like a natural flush than anything else. I really love that. And I just think that Phytosurgence's Condensate for pale people, it's just a game-changing blush, because I feel like so many blushes have so much saturation, and whenever your skin doesn't really have a ton of saturation to it, it's like these blushes end up looking way brighter than I think the brands want them to on your cheek, and like than I as the consumer want them to on my cheek. So I'm gonna keep that one. And then I was sent two shades from a friend. I have the shades Evaporate and Exothermic. And Exothermic is actually like this brownie, I guess kind of berry. And sometimes I feel like it looks really berry-y, and it like isn't I have an aversion to using it, but I love this shade because just like Condensate, it's kind of like one of those things where it's just like, what is that going to look like on my cheek? And then it turns into the most beautiful thing on my cheek. So I'm going to keep that one. And then I have Evaporate, which is kind of like I would say like a toasty peach shade. I think that's how the brand describes it as well. And Phytosurgence makes my favorite cream blush formula. Everything's a little melty. It's not warm in my room, but I just think that the weather changing outside is enough. This is the one shade that I feel a little more like indifferent about, just because of the like the undertones. It's so pretty and I love it on the cheek. But something tells me that I could give this to a friend who might love this so much more. Like, it is really pretty, but I don't think it's as special as Exothermic. I think it is a special shade. Whenever you compare it to like other peachy shades, I think it's unique. It has a little bit of a duskiness to it. Actually, you know what? I think I might this will be the first thing from the cheek drawer that I'm going to put in my quarantine box, that we'll see if I miss it and I ever want to reach for it. Because it doesn't feel right to me right now to immediately put it back in my collection. So I'm going to hold off on that making its way into my collection. Here's another bruisey cheek I love. This is the Chanel Blush Harmony in the shade Beige Mauve, or Mauve Beige. And it's like, to me, it's just the powder version of the Charlotte Tilbury one. And it's gorgeous and it's stunning. And essentially it's like it's like a blush that I've now loved for quite some time, and it's still something that regularly gets pulled out whenever I'm doing my makeup, so that can stick around. And then I have this other Chanel blush, which definitely gets much less love. It's a discontinued shade that was sent to me by a friend. It's the shade Ombre, and it's kind of like it's a cool toned brown, cool toned beigey brown. And it does not really get the love it deserves in my collection, even though I really love it. My hope is, because I am going to keep it, my hope is now that some of the quote-unquote riffraff is making its way out of my collection, I'm hoping that I will think about this more and want to use it more. I was told, like, maybe you could use it as a contour, but it definitely, I feel like, has a little bit of warmth in it that makes it, like, okay to wear on the high points of my cheek. So I'm going to keep this for now. I like it. It's just like, I just feel like it almost feels like I never use it. And then from Valentino, this is the shade 3 in the eye to cheek. And this is like one of those baby purpley pinks, which are kind of on trend right now. I feel like Dior just released a bunch of things in a shade like this. I really like this on the cheek. It's a beautiful formula. It's a beautiful blush. And I got limited edition packaging. This compact is like limited edition. And I'm glad I got this instead of the red version. And I really like it. And I do reach for it quite a bit. Then from Surratt, I have 2 of their Artistique liquid blushes. And I have the shade Barba Papa. I took the sponges off. If you're familiar with this packaging, you'll know that I did that. Like, that was a choice I made. I wanted to do that. And then this is Cantaloupe. And I will say I do prefer Cantaloupe in the liquid formula to Barba Papa. Kind of like what happened with this Chanel. I really love this formula. I find it a formula that's really lovely and easy to work with. And it's also like kind of a good layering blush too. Like starting with this while you're working with your creams, and then whenever you've powdered, finishing off with some other shades on top of them. I really like that, but they're also really subtle and watercolory. So I'm hoping now that some things have left the collection that I will think of them more. But if we come to wintertime and I'm still feeling like I've not gotten a lot of love out of any of these 3, they can go at that time. I'm keeping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And right now I'm currently decluttering 5. But now that I'm like looking at everything again, this still feels like more than I want to keep. And I'm wondering if I want to get rid of one of the other 2 Finding Ferdinand blushes I have. I do really like them. Like, Latte is really super easy. I think I'm okay with this, but I do feel like there's potential, like, if I'm not using it in a couple of months, by the end of the year, I think I can pass on some things. Probably likely this Chanel blush, the Surratt liquid blushes, and then probably maybe one or both of the Finding Ferdinand ones. We'll see. Only time will tell. Previously, these were entirely full, so I like what I'm seeing. We're seeing some space because the likelihood of me keeping something I buy or I get in PR in the future is pretty likely, so having some room and space for that is also good. Here are the 5 blushes I'm getting rid of, and then here is the first product going into the quarantine box. Here are all my highlighters. I'm gonna level with you right now. I feel like this is going to be the biggest category where we see things go. I'm going to start with the stuff that I for sure know I want to keep. My favorite highlighter right now is this one from Surratt. It's the Torche Lumiere in Diamante. Yeah, I think it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's one of the things that from Surratt that I actually feel like is most worth it, most special. At first, I was a little bit confused by it because there are shimmer particles in it, but I just love the way that this looks on my cheek. I love how easy it is to use. Like, you can spread it on your cheek, but just taking a brush to it and tapping it over whatever you have on, even after powdering, is so gorgeous and so ethereal. And it's just kind of this neutral shimmer. I know a lot of my friends really love Rose Diamante, but I think that the regular Diamante is the one for me. I would love to try Rose Diamante someday, but that seems like something that I would do with a friend when we're on vacation or something. I'd be like, please bring that so I can try it. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping that. Another keep for me is the Balm Essentiel from Chanel. This is something that doesn't get a lot of play on camera because it is a balmy highlighter. And there are some shimmer particles in there, but I think it mostly gets its shine from the balm. And when I'm just going out, hanging out with friends during the day, this is the kind of highlight I typically use. I'm not normally trying to like blind them, although I feel like the highlights you're going to see me keep or none of them are going to be super, super blinding. But I really, really love this. And also if your skin's looking a little dry, I throw this in my purse and I will just like tap the areas that look dry throughout the day, and it really kind of brings things back to life. And also I like to take it with me so I can reapply it because my skin will absorb it after a little bit of time, but that's okay. Something like this, I don't have that expectation of like incredible longevity. I don't think it's really designed for that. Another one that I begrudgingly really love from Charlotte Tilbury is the Spotlight Wand. I find it very handy, and I have found it very handy for some time, and it does make me angry that I find it that handy. It's a liquid highlighter that sets down and plays really well with other things, and it looks really good on the cheek. I would say of the highlights that I wear the most, this is the most blinding one that I wear the most and I pull out the most. But it's just so easy to use and reliable. There are a lot of dupes of it. I'm not a person who like seeks out dupes, but I do like something like this. And unfortunately, this is the one I have. But I do like it. This is the shade Moon Pillar from Ritual Defy, and I'm going to be keeping this one. I don't always play with these like iridescent, shifty kind of highlights. I like mostly save that for the eyes these days, but there's something beautiful and ethereal about what Ritual Defy does, because I feel like you don't really catch that purple except for like in small glimpses. And I really love their cream highlighter formula. And this is a shade I would say I use even like a little bit less, but I have a really strong divot going in there, and it's because I really enjoy it. And since I do more cool tone looks, this tends to be the kind of highlighter I reach for if I am going for something a little more marvelous. This is the Rare Light Luminizer formula. So the metamorphic highlighters I really loved at one point, but I do feel, not that I've like grown out of that, I've just kind of shifted away from loving a really incredibly sparkly cheek, and that's what those tend to offer. And then the sister shade to that, I guess it's not really the sister shade, but it's the shade Phosphine, which is kind of like the warm toned equivalent. And it's like a champagne shifty pink highlighter. But I also find myself wearing this one quite a bit as well. And just like Moon Pillar, I have quite the dent going in here as well. So I will also be keeping that. All right, let's talk about some things I'm gonna get rid of. I think I'm getting rid of most of my powder highlighters. This one is from Lunar Beauty. It's the shade Mars. And a lot of people told me I could use this as a blush topper. It is really beautiful, but I have to baby it too much. And I think if I could find a friend with a deeper skin tone than me that can love it as a highlighter, I would love for them to have that. I love interacting with this compact. I also think the formula is beautiful. I feel like Manny stopped making the highlighters because if he still made them, or like, because I always feel like they're out of stock. So I do see myself, if he ever like relaunches these in other shades, I could see myself wanting it again, because I love interacting with the compact. It is just kind of based on the color exclusively. And like one of my subscribers sent this my way for me to try out. I think someone else can love it more than me. I'm getting rid of this. This is from Rare Beauty. It's the Enlighten highlighter. Everyone loves these. It's just not the kind of highlighter that I like. It's so bright. It doesn't really look skin native, whereas all of the ones up here that I like love, they just look more native on my skin. And I feel like even more like the purple shifty one looks more like it belongs in this. And of course that's like a heavy swatch, but I just don't think this formula is that. I just don't care about it. I just don't care about it. And I feel that way every time I use it. I'm like, okay, I just don't like, it's not even like I hate it. It's just, I kind of do hate it, because this formula is really fragile and people end up with broken ones all of the time whenever they're shipped to them. If that is a problem that you're having at a brand at this price point, which is of course not the most expensive brand, it's like you need to figure something out to ship these better. I kind of hate that. I'm also kind of just like bleh, on Rare Beauty in general. Like I just don't care. It's not for me. I'm gonna pass on it. Someone else can love it. But that was also a gift from a friend. This one kind of hurts my heart a little, but it is time. It is time. This is the Milk Flex highlighter in the shade Lit. They don't make this anymore. They haven't made this for some time. The problem is it's just too deep for me. And I now have formulas that have this undertone, which I think is really, really beautiful, that kind of champagne-y thing going on, but I have them in just shades that work better for me as opposed to this. It throws a cast. I have found, I think, with most of my powder highlights that there's a cast and then it's like, I just don't want to deal with it. I have a lot of makeup loving friends that missed out on the opportunity for this, so I would love to pass it on to them. I mean, it is an old product. They would have to be willing to take an old product, but I think that a makeup lover would be willing if they really wanted this. So yeah, I think I can find a new home for this. It doesn't feel like its time is done, but it's time that my collection is done. And it was, despite the way it looks, really well loved in my collection for a long time. Here's one exception that I will be keeping. This is from Pat McGrath back in the day when she still did like the kits as opposed to like having the main brand. And this is the shade 003 pigment. And I love that pink pearly shift. It is quite obnoxious as like the three down here are, but I like it. I just like the way it looks on my skin, especially like if I'm doing something really pinky girly cool toned. I really like having it. And it is it might be the oldest thing in my collection at this point, and I still love getting my fingers and my brushes into it. I really like it. This is my last cream highlighter from Westman Atelier, and I always have issues opening it, so that's nothing new. This is the Peau de Rosé shade, and I'm filming this earlier in June because my declutters take me a really long time to like record and edit, but I just filmed a video with this, and I really like this. I don't think it's for everyone, but it is a really, really pretty cream highlighter. It has a little bit of sparkle in it, not as much as like some of the ones down here, but I just really like the way it looks on my skin. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I both love and hate the packaging. It's love that it's really lovely and weighted. I do kind of hate how difficult it is to open, but I will keep it. And here's the thing. Here's what we come down to. And I think of these both as like similar. They're in the same vein, right? Like, so I have The Alchemist from Ritual de Fille, and I also have How Many Carats from Fenty. There was a top plastic layer, which made it easier to open, but then it fell off. And then instead of gluing it back on, I was like, I can live with it just naked. That's not true, because it like does not want to open for me right now. The Ritual de Fille Alchemist has really large, beautiful chunks of shimmer, and the Fenty Beauty one has much finer shimmer. And I kind of run into the same thing with both of them. They're both really cool, and I really like them. Obviously, I really have had my time in the sun with The Alchemist. I hit pan on it. So The Alchemist has that chunkiness, and I feel like it looks more purposeful than the one from Fenty, which also gives you a wet look. The thing is, I always do this whenever I swatch these and I'm looking at it on camera. I always think that they both look so gorgeous, but I know my hand's hairy, but I just think that the Ritual de Fille one does it better than the Fenty one, which also does it. And the reality of the situation is this. I don't think I need both of these. This one's still fresher. When I do think of doing something like this, I do normally reach for The Alchemist. And like, I have such a big pan in it, and I want to try to finish it. The thing is, I just don't use it that often. Like, I swear to God, if I just would have kept the momentum that I had with it whenever I was like really loving it, I probably would have finished it. But that's just not what I'm doing now. But I do go clubbing occasionally, and I do love this for the cheek for that. So I will keep this. And then this was a gift from Tiff, so I really appreciate that they gave it to me. But I think its time in my collection is done. And hopefully I can give it to someone who will find a solution to make it easier for them to open, because my bad. I should have just super glued the outer plastic back on, but I certainly didn't. So for highlighters, I'm decluttering 4. I guess I don't really have that many highlighters anymore. I was like, that doesn't seem like that many. So 4, I'm decluttering. And that means I'm keeping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wow. Highlighters used to be the thing that I had the most of in my makeup collection. And while I still think like 8's probably more than I need. I know that I use all of these ones, maybe with the exception of The Alchemist, but I think it's okay to keep a party girl in there for every now and then, because it's just, I do use it sometimes. So I'm going to put these back in my container. That feels a lot better. In fact, I think my highlighters actually can fit in the same container as my blushes. And then that way the back container can be completely devoted to bronzers, which now there's only 3. Wow. Okay, let me get everything out of the way. I'm not going to count what I'm keeping overall, but let me pull out everything I'm decluttering from this this category. I am getting rid of these 9 cheek products, and that doesn't feel like a lot. That might not feel like ruthless to some of you, but it does feel ruthless to me. I don't have like a large makeup collection compared to a lot of other YouTubers. I'm always thinking about what can stay and what can go, and so it's something that's always in my heart that I'm thinking about. So 9 feels good to me, because I think if I was being less discerning, I think that the declutter would look more like these 5, but I'm just being true with myself, and I just think that these 9 need to find a new home. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Before you leave, I would like for you to go into my description box. I have linked to a family that needs help in Gaza. It's a GoFundMe, and I got that GoFundMe from Operation Olive Branch, which is doing work to help the people in Gaza get money directly to them to help their families get out. So please check that out down below before you leave the video. But if you are new here and you aren't subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe. Basically, the thesis I gave at the beginning of this video is the thesis of my channel. I want to help you and help myself build the habit of being more discerning about what we're buying and how much we are buying. It's not like always focused on buying, but that's kind of what the deal is. So I'm doing fashion content, fragrance content, and I also obviously do makeup content. My approach to shopping and things now is to buy really nice things that I know I'm going to use, and if they're more expensive, so be it. I just want to make sure that I'm buying things that I know I'm going to use as much as I can and love them for as long as I can. So that's like the goal here. So if that sounds good to you, I would love to have you subscribe. Make sure you like this video and share it with anyone who you think would like this video. I mean, I know declutters are pretty popular, but go ahead. That really helps me out. That'd be really nice. And if you are decluttering, let me know in the comments down below. I'm also on Patreon, and I have channel memberships. You can check them out, linked down below. I do some additional content over there. If you want to check it out, feel free, but there's no pressure to liking, watching, commenting. That's really great for me, and you don't need to do any more than that. So no pressure there. But that wraps up today's video. Remember to follow your hope, and you'll find me. And I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth to doubt.